jetzt daran denke, ist das ein unheimlicher Anstieg von vor 15 Jahren. Also es ist schon unglaublich, was da passiert ist.
Our sport is I think it's probably the most popular in terms of young girls playing. So to continue to give them something to strive for, it's important for us to bring attention to our sport and grow our game.
This is going to be a very big game.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Estamos aquí en el camerino de la Selección Colombia.
Would like to see more women coaches. FIFA has put women's football at the heart of its mission.
We want to show the world how good we are prepared, and now it's time to bring all this preparation on the field of play. I really hope that young females who are interested in football pick up a whistle and go for refereeing.
We've got goal line technology for the first time in a women's tournament, so a few of those innovations that you saw in Brazil last year are also coming to the Women's World Cup. The women's game is a great showcase for the best things in football. There's a purity about the game. There's a freshness about it. There's a joy about it.
Well, a very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, one and all. It is day 3 of the FIFA Women's Football Symposium, and very encouraging to see that the numbers here today have swelled. We're welcoming more Football Federation presidents this morning, more members of the FIFA Executive Committee, and the members of the media. We love the media because they form such a vital cog in promoting women's football. So welcome, one and all. A round of applause for all of our special guests making it today. So it's the 3rd and final day of the Football Symposium, and while for many when they got up this morning, I think their thoughts centered around the big final a little bit later on today, USA up against Japan. For many of us that are here, it really was about what happens after the final whistle, what happens when we return to our respective federations, because we've really had some progressive and meaningful discussions throughout this symposium. We've received some guidance as to what it is that we could do, which areas we could focus on to elevate the level of the women's game. And today is going to further aid in doing just that. It's going to help us to take that next step to action to make change happen. So on day 1, in the review from Germany 2011 to Canada 2015, we heard of the many competitions that have taken place, the strides that have been taken in women's football. For example, we looked at Azerbaijan in 2012, Costa Rica 2014, the fact that we're seeing the game being taken to new territories. Up next, we've got Jordan, we've got Papua New Guinea. So a clear indication that progress is continuing. We spoke about the importance of the Olympic competitions as being vital to the growth of the game, but that so many countries really needed to become a part of it. For example, in qualifying, we needed to accelerate the number of teams being involved in this level of competition. We spoke about 78% of member associations having a national league, but we definitely need more. We need others to follow suit. The hashtag Live Your Goals campaign launched in Germany, that's garnered some really great traction. We've seen tens of thousands of girls, of women being involved in playing the game, being involved in football. The task force for women's football that was established and put together and formulated the 10 key development principles for the advancement of women's football. They were approved, of course, by the 64th FIFA Congress in June 2014. We had Moya Dodd, who took us, of course, through those principles. So that was another great celebration for all of us here. Governance, governance, governance. We spoke at length about the importance of this and having women in football, women in leadership positions. The awesome, of course, Heather Reid challenged all of us to be bold, to lead continuous change wherever we are across the globe. We need women to be involved in any of the reform processes and the strategy. We heard from a female decision maker, Sonia Biename, and a male decision maker in Kozo Tashima, just telling us a little bit about how Japan has realized the importance of having women in leadership in their federation and how they planned for the success that we are seeing today of Nadeshiko. You further added all of your views, all of your suggestions, all of your learnings in governance, which led to a really great podium discussion led by herself, a great example of women in leadership, and that is Heike Ulrich. Then we moved to what Anna Signol spoke about, the heartbeat, the lifeblood of football, and that is competitions. Anna really took us through the development pyramid from the development grassroots stage to elite football, talking about the pathway for players, for coaches, and for referees. In the podium discussion that was guided by April Heinrichs, what you all expressed is that the most important thing for further progress is, of course, participation. Really is essential in improving the levels of the game. You also spoke about player involvement being very, very essential, and that we should recruit and upskill players before they retire. We heard about and we all supported power play, giving a voice to African girls and women through football. And thank you so much to Isha Johansson for telling us about this wonderful initiative and inspiring us to all get involved. We know that the Confederation of African Football and FIFA supports this initiative, and all of you, by raising your hands, showcased your support. Day 2, yesterday, well, this was really exciting as we looked at the business of the beautiful game, and we had some fantastic speakers that joined us at this symposium. The marketing aspect of it, very, very important, and what a wonderful presentation that we had from Allianz, doing a great, great job of developing women's football in Germany. Peter Koch really illustrated that it's become a relationship. It's more than just a sponsorship for them, but it truly is a partnership. And he spoke about the fact that when reaching out to sponsors, women's football really needs to show self-confidence and be innovative. We spoke about the promotion of women's football, and once again blown away by Robert Gottlieb of Fox Sports when he showed us how it is that the United States of America has increased this tremendous wave of support that we're seeing now for Team USA. And he also spoke about the fact that, like in Germany, they're building the bridge between men's and women's football. We also heard about what it is that the French Football Federation is doing. Thank you to Frédéric Jossinet telling us about how it is that they're promoting women's football there. Well, another critical cog, and I'm sure you all agree, to fast-tracking change is finances. You looked at some of the stats and figures illustrated by Ibru Koksal, a really wonderful presentation there. She spoke about financial principles in women's football and the reality that, sadly, in many federations, we're still a far, far cry from having that healthy financial injection to ultimately raising the standard of the game and making women's football self-sustainable. There were some key points from her presentation in that men's football continues to subsidize women's football largely. She spoke about governments needing to fund more prominently the women's game, talking about to further develop the game, to have women's football integrated into the school system, and the fact that social media is very, very essential as well in promoting the game. And I know, Amanda, you were very, very happy to hear all of that. I truly loved Amanda Vandervoort's podium discussion because Obviously, not just because social media was a vital aspect of that discussion, where we had questions being tabled via the hashtag Live Your Goals. People outside of this forum sent some questions to our participants in the podium discussion, but also the fact that we heard from some member associations. We had Uganda, Samoa, as well as Guam here, talking about what it is that they're doing in their respective federations. And yes, we all jointly agreed that more effort needs to be put into marketing, promotion, and finances. So today, it's time for us to take action, to make change happen. So how do we go about doing this? We'll start off by talking about governance. Please welcome to the stage retired football referee, the president of the Swedish Football Association, Mr. Carl Erik Nilsson.
Dear friends of football, it's great to be here. It has been some lovely days since Friday morning, very inspiring. I'm very happy also to see a lot of my colleagues coming in here, and I'm pretty sure that for the next symposium there's room for even more. This has been really good days so far. I will start my presentation with a short personal review. Yes, if this now is working. This is a stadium, the Theatre of Dreams in my local village in the southeast of Sweden. I did almost everything there, played football, was a leader, and had a lot of different positions. And this type of small club has a strong connection with the daily social life in this village. So that led me also into the local politics, and I became the chairman of the board and the mayor for 12 years, and here I tried to convince the council that my proposals are the very best, but not always succeeded, but sometimes really good. Refereeing was also one of my parts, and in the refereeing I also had the opportunity to be a part of the international top-level football, and also, of course, the local football, but as well as the top national football. This is a picture from 1980, 15 years ago, at the under-21 final in the beautiful city of Bratislava, where Czech Republic played Italy. 7 of the Italian players were world champions some years after in Germany. Unfortunately, it's 15 years ago, and I think it's more or less the same number of kilos, but that's another thing. There's not only football. The important thing in life is the family. This is my 4 children, the pride of the father. This is my lovely wife, Lena, and this is the favorite of the family, our golden retriever girl, Tuva. And there is a quiz after my presentation. Who do you think show most joy when I arrive home a Tuesday afternoon? However, this is in Swedish, nationalsporten, the national sport. The football is number 1, no doubt, and we have some strong characters leading our A national teams, both on the men and the female side. 5 steps to build a success. It all starts with your ideas, with your vision. And after having set your dream on a paper, you have to build a platform for your brand. What is your core values? What is the most important goals to set? And what is also the operational blueprint? When you have put that down and you have made this document ready, you have to ask yourself, what would people miss if we went out of business? And this is an easy question for all of us to answer, because we will see the success of this tournament and we will see the development of women football all over the globe. Of course, we will be missed. But this is an important question to ask. The promise, that is your brand, what you have put in your brand, what is your core values, what is the set goals, and what is the blueprint? And then tell the stories. Media are fantastic. They tell so many great stories about our sport, but they don't tell every story. There are so many important stories on the grassroots level that need to be told, and that will strengthen your brand, no doubt. We started by ourselves, that the Congress 2013 decided of our goals and strategies for the coming years. Probably the FA board could lock themselves in a weekend somewhere in Sweden and produce this material, but we made a proper process, involved a lot of stakeholders, involved a lot of people who are very interested in the development of our sport. And the good thing with this proper process is that when you are going to implement this program, you have a lot of people who are ready to take action. Because no one else outside our sport will do our job. We have to do it ourselves. Our vision is that football should be our national sport for everyone, everywhere. Some easy words. But we have to think about this, whatever we do. This is the thing that leads us on our path. You don't need to see all this which is on a slide, but this is an example of our principles and values. And I want to highlight the second, that is in bold words. We lead by example and show openness and respect for each individual as a person, and the principle of human equality in general, as well as combating all forms of discrimination and, listen to this, promoting the work of equality and diversity. The Swedish football family have told us, you have to promote the work of equality and diversity, and that's a part of our brand. This is a part of our brand. Before we set our goals, we also needed to have some good information. How does it look like in the Swedish world of football? If we look into this, we can see that the children born around 2007, 2006, around 20% of the girls are in the red, around 20% of the girls, they play football in a football club on a regular basis. They train, they practice, they play matches. And around 50% of the boys. But when they are 10 years older, you can see a dramatic change. Then it's far below the figures they were 10 years ago. So of course, this is something we have to bear in mind when we set our goals. And we see the red figures. We can also see that there is an extremely high potential to involve more players, more girls, more females into the football family. One other important information is that football are the most popular sport among teenagers with foreign background. 42% train and plays regular in a football club. Of course, this is important information for us when we plan the future for our association and for the Swedish football. So we set out 13 strategic objectives, and you don't need to see all these 13, but there are some I want to highlight. The first two are about our role in an integrated Sweden, and the second one is our role and our position in the society on the basis of our mission statement. Because just the fact that young boys and girls play football in a football club gives us a great opportunity to give them a better future. They have got the democratic values, they set their goals, they have also the opportunity to fulfill the ambition to reach their goals. There are also some other goals. Increase the number of people participating in our sport. When you saw the figures, we have a possibility to get more guys and girls to stay longer. But we also have a great possibility to attract more girls into the football. So encourage more players to play longer. And then the 5 last goals are related to the sport. We want to have medals in the international competition. Unfortunately, we were not successful this time, but we will come back, be sure. And the second last goal is on the club level, and we want also to be successful to go far in the European club tournament. So 13 strategic objectives for these years. But what does our statute say? Yeah. It says that the FA board and all our committees should have both men and women. But what does that mean? Is 2 enough? Is 3 enough? No. We started by doing something very different. We started with education. We started with education of the FA board and all our committees, and especially our election committees. because we have to know more about gender issues. We recruited a representative from one of the universities to have courses for the FA board, because we decided to sweep the stairs from the top and then down. And the first step is now fulfilled. Now we go to step 2, and this education will now go to our regional football associations, to their election committees. Because if you in an election committee, these committees are proposing which persons are going to be elected in our general assemblies, both on the regional and the national level. If we only have guys with blonde hair between 50 and 60 years of age in our election committees, there is a big risk that they only propose blonde guys between 50 and 60 to be holding the positions in the committees and the FA board. So diversity and a range of both men and women is absolutely crucial in the election committees. And if you don't have the education, then there is a risk that you don't realize the importance of this. Today, in our FA board and our committees, we are around 70% men and 30% women. And if we look upon the number of participants in our football, that is more or less the same. 72% are boys and 28% are girls and women. But after this education, and after having a conference some 2 weeks ago, because after the education, we are ready to set our goals. And now with a better knowledge, we know that 70% and 30%, that isn't not good enough. And I'm pretty sure that when the FA board this autumn will set the goals for the future, I'm pretty sure that on the national level in Sweden, we have an ambition that in the FA board and in the committees, there should be 50% men and 50% women. We don't do that in a quick fix, but that will be our aim for the future, no doubt. And why are we doing this? It's very easy. We have this document. We want to be more leaders. We want to be more players. Of course, the easiest way to be more is to try to recruit where we are underrepresented. We are underrepresented. We need to have more women. We need to have more also from other cultural background than the Swedish. So that is very strictly easy, an easy way to reach our goals. On the other hand, this is also set in our statutes, and we want to have a strong brand. And by that reason, we have to also work with this issue. And the third, and that is my personal experience. If you have a mixed board, and if you have a mixed group of people, the decisions we take today with 70-30, they are good. They are probably good enough. But I'm pretty sure with another mix, our decisions will be even better. So it's very strategic that we have a very mixed group taking the decision in our federation. We have as many men's as women's team, totally 14. We have equally camps for the teams because it's important we play football. Football is our core business, and everything has to start with the football. Still, and it will be like this, I'm sure, for many, many years further on, that the men's A national team is more or less financing all other national teams. But, and a big but, the women teams gives power to the market value of our men's team. The market we will not be attractive on the market if we only have the men's football. The fact what we are saying in our strategical documents and what our brand is filled with, that is something that is like a whole perspective. And if we only put one perspective, then we will not be attractive for the market. So this is purely important for us to have this philosophy. Our organization related to the political side is very traditional. We have a board, we have some committees. What I want to highlight here for you, that is the administration, and that is also pretty traditional. I want to highlight two areas. The elite women girls area and the education area. And the education area just consists of these different things, and the elite women-girls area you can see by yourself. Players development, national team coaches, national team teams, elite coach education, and so on. And in between, there are 3 letters, EFD. EFD, that's our league, our first 2 top divisions, 26 teams altogether. And I will come back to the club football in a while. The elite women girls, you definitely don't need to see anything of this, but this is a scheme. And on this scheme, there are a lot of competent women working to develop the Swedish football. And the head of the department, Marika, is here, and one of the key important persons, Anneli, is here. Please raise up. Where are you? Marika? Are you sleeping? No, Marika is there, and Anneli is there. If you want to raise any questions how we work with these matters, please address them to Marika and Anneli, and they will be more than happy to answer. And I will, of course, be more than happy to answer also, and you can take contact with us. On this scheme, there are 3 men, and the rest of them are women, strong women leading this department. Of course, football is the important thing. And this is a program how we develop the players in our national teams from girls 15 up to our dreams related to the A national team. And the aim of the program is, of course, to develop the players. The expectations are not so high in the beginning, but the education phase is very important. And as longer you come, the expectations, of course, is higher and higher. Finally, some words about our club football. Our national team football lives, of course, their important life. But our club football is very, very crucial. And I really hope that in every member association that we can take step also to develop the club football, the day-by-day football that is so important for the development of the players and the development of our sport. And I think with a strong club football and a strong national team football and a strong national team department, there can be a golden zone created where we can raise the possibility for the girls even better. So strong club football, strong national team football, and great cooperation in between, that can be a golden zone where 1 + 1 can be at least 2.5, perhaps 3. And the club football and the league. 1988, we established Damallsvenskan, which is our first division, and some years ago, 2013, the second division, that was previously 2 series, now it's 1. And as you can see, 12 teams in the first division, professional status of the players, including the club license system, and self-financed. I come back to that with the finance issues. And you see also the figures related to the second division, Elitettan. And under these 8 teams, there are, as you can see, a lot of youth teams. Yeah, this is definitely the biggest sport in Sweden, football overall. And female football is the biggest female sport, no doubt. We have this number of registered players. But if you saw one of my first slides, when we count the players from 8 years of age, we have about 130,000 girls involved in our football. We are increasing, and there are some good number of full-time players in our first division, and the turnover is growing. And one of the main things is that we, from the federation point of view, made an agreement with our 2 top divisions, both in male and female football. We said to them, it's better that more people are involved in the development, so you will have the possibility to attract the market, to go to the market, to sell the league, and also to sell the TV rights. And the result of that is that we, from this year, have all 132 matches broadcasted live from the Swedish top division, and that is really good. Finally, and a conclusion. It starts with your ideas, with your vision, with your dreams. Then you fill this brand with some strong ideas, strong values, some operational blueprint. You set the goals. You ask the question, what will happen if we went out of business? But then you have to live your brand, because that is a promise to everyone involved in football, to the market, to the society. And then please tell all the good stories. And we dream, and we still live every day our vision. Finally, all representatives from the national associations here in the room, we are different in many aspects. We have different possibilities, different challenges, but in one area we are really equal. Friday morning, 9 o'clock or 9:15, I sent out a tweet on Twitter. We heard about the target, go from 30 million players, female players, to 45 million female players. That's a 50% increase until 2019. I said on the Twitter, let's go home and do our part of the job. National associations, don't forget the confederation. The confederations play a very important role in this development. And as I said, we are equal in one aspect. We can all do something. Let's take one or perhaps two steps in all the 209 member association, and then I'm sure that we will be a part of a very inspiring growth until 2019. Enjoy, good luck, thank you.
A really great presentation. Thank you so much, Carl-Erik, for showcasing what it is that Sweden is getting right when it comes to the beautiful game, and most importantly, also talking about their learnings when it comes to governance and making sure that women play a very prominent role in women's football. Another round of applause. Thank you so much for being with us today. So let's now move to the essence of the game, and that is competitions. In order to augment the side of the game for women, we have a very special speaker here with us. Please welcome President of the United States Soccer Federation. He is a FIFA Executive Committee member as well, Mr. Sunil Gulati.
I now have a better idea why no one is pleased to see me when I get home. My family does not have a dog, so that seems to be part of the story for success. It's really a great pleasure to be here today, and I don't mean only in this room, but standing here as opposed to sitting there. And the reason is when I was asked to come and speak, I said, "What's the format?" They said, "Well, it could be two possible formats." And I said, "Okay, what are the formats?" She said, "Well, if your team is playing on Sunday, then you will do it from a microphone and a podium. If your team is not playing on Sunday, you will bring your coach and 6 players and sit in the seats here." So it's really a pleasure not to be sitting there today. And I obviously wish my colleagues from the Japanese Federation good luck. What happens after the whistle, you said? What happened after the whistle 4 years ago in Germany for us was that we started preparing the next day. There were some tears, and then we wanted to be back here. So I'm pleased that we are back here, obviously. It's been a phenomenal tournament. Great compliments to FIFA, to the CSA, and everyone else involved. What this tournament has done or shown in the United States, and I said this to our players a couple of days ago, in the United States, this tournament 4 years ago started about the time when Abby Wambach headed a ball in against Brazil in the quarterfinals, and the country woke up to what was going on. We were a player down, great comeback. This time, this tournament started well before the tournament actually started. And today, I have no doubt, between 4 and 6, we will set smash a TV record for ratings in the United States. It's the first tournament outside the Men's World Cup, so any Olympics, any youth competition, where the number of visitors that have come for an event is extraordinary. And you know that it's, okay, a big part of that is because of the proximity to the United States and how many people we have there and so on, and our team doing well, but it's really extraordinary. So it's, in another way of saying that, by the way, it's the first tournament outside of the World Cup and perhaps the Olympics because of other sports as well, that there's an economic impact from a women's sporting event. That's pretty extraordinary. So let me tell you a little bit about what we do. And what I want to talk about for part of this presentation is what I do on Mondays and Wednesdays or Tuesdays and Thursdays, depending on what semester it is, which is teach economics. And I want to talk a little bit about economics along with competition. And the reason I want to do that is because I am not sure at all that doing the right thing is the right thing. It may well be wrong to do the right thing. And what do I mean by that? We often try to convince people to do things because it's right. In one of our professional leagues, which didn't survive on the women's side some years ago, there was a pitch as the people running the league were trying to save it. Corporations should do this because it's the right thing. Spend a couple $1 million, buy a sponsorship. That, I don't think, resonates very well when the alternatives are cancer research, childhood education, and everything else to save a professional league. So I think doing the right thing is obviously a good thing, but I think doing things that make economic sense, that are also the right things, that make social sense, are probably what's going to drive the participation levels, the economic support, and so many other things that we all want to see happen. So, a couple of things. The opportunity in front of us. There's obviously a sporting opportunity. This event over the last several weeks has shown that. This has been an extraordinary event, replicating what happened in Germany in many ways, and in many ways exceeding that, replicating what's happened previously, whether it's in the United States or in China, and in many ways exceeding that. So the opportunity is certainly there. The social opportunity is also there. And what do I mean by the social opportunity? The social opportunity that exists for girls in many, many spheres. So a lot of those economics classes I teach have to do with economic development and things like literacy rates among young girls and what changes in those literacy rates can do for society, what changes in obesity levels can do for childhood learning, for well-being, for future success, for income opportunities, for schooling rates. All of those things are pretty extraordinary. And the economics. So I accept what my colleague from Sweden said, that the men's program generally funds everything. I want to look at the numbers in the U.S., and I'm not sure that's the case anymore. We announced 2 games last week after this tournament is over, 2 friendly games against Costa Rica. The first one of those games, for the women's team, the first one of those games sold out in the same day at 20,000. The second game sold 25,000 tickets in the first day. And I sent a note to our general secretary, and our head of competition said, we should probably be playing in bigger stadiums, because my guess is we're going to average between 35 and 45,000 people for a series of 6 to 10 games this fall. Those games will make money. They'll fund other programs. It's still not the case that much of the commercial part of what we have in the United States is coming from that, but it's getting there. Having said that, I fully appreciate that there are many lessons that might be learned from the United States experience, but also many, many differences. Most countries don't have 320 million people. Most countries don't have a soccer federation with a budget of 100 million approximately. Some of you exceed that, obviously, but many don't. And many other challenges we have. Many of you don't have, very, very few of you have, the same incentives we have because of university-level education in the United States and scholarships that provides, and I'll come back and talk about that. But I think U.S., while different, there are some things that are transferable across the board. Let me ask, before I move on, how many people in the room, just raise your hand, recognize the woman in the middle? Can you raise your hand if you recognize who that is in the middle of the picture? Okay, so that is a female soccer player. She will earn, my guess is, somewhere between $3 and $5 million this year as a female soccer player. About, depending on how that game goes this afternoon, she'll earn about $300,000 purely from playing, and every one of her teammates would earn the same, by the way. So the U.S. players, if we win that game today and there's a bonus involved, and these numbers are all public, would earn this year about $300,000 per player. They're on full-time salaries, full-time benefits, daycare when we're on the road with our teams, and so on. I appreciate that not many countries in the world have that level of resources. Some of you do. But where she'll earn a lot more money is through commercial endorsements. She's a world champion at under 20 level. She'll be on the field tonight. It's Alex Morgan. She has more Twitter followers and Instagram followers and Facebook followers than certainly any U.S. male player. And I'm told more than just about any male soccer player in the world other than Cristiano Ronaldo and a few others. So in terms of sports in the United States, top 5 to 7 overall income earners from endorsements. And that category is one that includes Sharapova and Serena Williams and so on. So clearly a breakthrough player and a breakthrough person and personality. More people will know about her in the future. So there's the challenge for many of you. The 49.6% represents the percentage of female players of our overall players in the United States, just under half. And it's a big denominator, 4.5, 5 million. So to find 11 that can play tonight is a little bit easier if you have 2.5 or 3 million of them playing actively. To find another 11 that can play in an under 20 competition, and so on. The 8% number represents the international number without the United States. So 8%, and this comes from the FIFA reports, 8% of participants worldwide, excluding the United States, are female. So the opportunity there is extraordinary. Our problem in the United States is not numbers, whether it's on the boys' side or the girls' side. It's about opportunity, it's about equality, it's about resources, it's about all of those things, but it's not necessarily only about numbers. We have enough players. But if you look at that, and I'll come back to this point, from the economics perspective of where the opportunity lies, participation is certainly a huge opportunity across the board. And it's not because we should do that or you should do that because it's the right thing. It's because there's a huge opportunity. And what do I mean by that? And I'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. What's happened here? It was a big question mark. We went from 16 to 24 teams, 12 starting in 1991 in China, and we're at 24. Yes, there were a couple of lopsided games in the first round, but even within some of those, some teams that lost big games or lost by big margins by game 3 were competitive. There were teams that came into the competition having played 1 or 2 or 3 games in preparation. The U.S. program's been around 30 years now. We play an average of 20 to 25 games every year with the national team, some years as many as 40. So the quality of play is only going to get better when players have opportunities. And we saw in this tournament that there were some teams that were big surprises. And you know who all of those were. For Colombia to beat France, for Colombia to battle the U.S. for a long time, and other results we could talk about. The same thing happened on the men's side, by the way, when the tournament expanded. There were a couple of games early on that were lopsided. There are very few of those now, leaving aside that one strange result between Germany and Brazil. Sorry to mention that to the Brazilians. But the rest of the games were actually quite competitive. And the same is true here. So quality of play will follow as resources follow, as opportunities follow. Something that can't be replicated anywhere else. We got a big break in the United States. I won't say we got lucky. We had some very smart government officials in this case. So 30 years ago, a law was passed in the United States. And it wasn't a law about sports or about female participation in sports. It was a law about gender equality. And that gender equality law said when you're getting federal funds, when you're getting government money, you must treat people equally. And how that got translated in the United States to universities that received public funding, which is almost all of them, was that you had to meet certain tests that showed you were paying the same level of attention to men's sports and women's sports. And there were a number of ways to do that. It could be number of players involved in the sports, but it had a lot to do with money, which means you had to spend roughly half your money as a university football or university basketball or all sports on women's programs. The negative effects of that, some people would say, well, there's 2 ways to equalize those. One is to stop spending so much money on men's sports, and some of that happened. But the other and the better way to equalize things is to spend a lot more money on women's sports. What did that do in the United States? Well, what it did in the United States was a lot more money got spent on women's sports, in particular soccer at the university level. What did that do? In the U.S., university education is an extraordinarily important part of our landscape. Well, what does that mean? It means all the young players who were choosing sports, dedicating themselves to sports, said, I want to go to university. And their parents said, yes, but that university costs $250,000. And then their club coach said, yes, but if you're a good soccer player, someone else will pay the $250,000. Incentives. We come back to economics. Incentives matter a lot. This changed the landscape of the United States. Nothing I did, nothing any of my predecessors did. A government law made our job a lot easier. So players like Mia Hamm and Julie Foudy and Christine Lilly and the players that you see today are children originally and now women that were born out of a government law that made our life a lot easier. And there's no doubt about it. We can show this empirically, how much this changed the landscape in terms of participation, in terms of elite player development, because there was a reason, and it wasn't necessarily to play in the national team. Everyone gets that only 20 or 30 players can do that. But it was a college scholarship, which at a top American university today is worth $250,000 to $300,000. That's a lot of money. And that changed the landscape pretty dramatically. It changed participation numbers from 200,000 to 2 million in a pretty short period of time. Yes, the World Cup in 1990 helped, and the World Cup in 2003 helped. And by the way, we can show through statistical analysis that our registration numbers went up, particularly in areas where there were Women's World Cup games. Not a big surprise. I would expect numbers in Vancouver and Edmonton and Winnipeg to go up after this tournament more so than they might in other places. So a big break for us here and something that was out of our control. So what does all of this mean, and why do I come back to this notion of it may not be the right, to do right may not be the right reason to do things? Here's what I mean by that. We've got a budget of about $100 million this year, maybe 95, close to $100 million in the United States. I don't know, standing here today, what percentage of that is spent on women's program. But I'm pretty sure that if we spent another $5 million on our men's program, it wouldn't move us up in the FIFA rankings very much. It wouldn't win us a World Cup. And it probably wouldn't on the women's side either, because we're spending a lot now. But I'll guarantee you, for 125, 150 people in this room, 150 countries, FIFA members, what would $1 million investment do in the men's program? Most of you, if not all of you, take the men's program very seriously. Some more so than others because of resources, obviously. But $1 million wouldn't do very much in most countries around the world on your men's program. It wouldn't move you up. It would obviously make things easier. You could pay your players more. You might have better facility. But think about what $1 million, or any number you want, the point is at the margin, whether it's $1 or $1 million. What would $1 million investment do in your women's program? For many people in the room, Alex Morgan earns more in a year than some of your budgets. Certainly, for most people in this room, for most federations of the world, $3 to $5 million is more than you spend on your women's program. There's no doubt about that. So think about, we've got a player who's earning more than many of our associations can spend, and that's not a criticism at all. This is the reality. My point in the reality is, come back to economics. And one of the easy, and I teach in New York, and apparently we've got something called Wall Street downtown, and they're always looking for better returns, I'm told. Want a better return? Better returns are generally where there's new investment opportunities. Spending $1 more on your men's program after you've spent tens of millions or hundreds of millions is less likely to lead to a great return than investing in an under 16 girls program or an under 12 recreational program on the girls' side. That doesn't mean don't spend on the boys' side, but economics, come back to Econ 101 as we call it, my university, it's about making choices. It's about making choices. And so for me, and by the way, we did not in 1985, when we started our program 30 years ago, sit down as my colleagues at the Swedish Federation did and come up with a plan. We had a team, we sent a team to Italy, they lost 1-0, then we sent another team somewhere else, and then we sent April Heinrichs, who's sitting in front of me, as captain of a team in 1991, and she came back with a gold medal and 17 other teammates who had gold medals, and it seemed like a good thing. No one really understood what happened. I can guarantee you they understand. 20 million people that watch that game today will understand. But it wasn't a long-term vision and a plan. But it was a few people who thought, we can make this work. And then it was a few players who said, we don't care if you think you can make it work, we're going to make you make it work. And there was girl power for sure. They pushed us very hard. We did a lot of things we wouldn't have otherwise done. But it is so much easier, and here's the challenge. Here's the challenge I throw at all of you. Without question, the rate of return on investing in women's sports, in women's soccer in our case, is greater than it is on the men's side. There is no question about it. We're one of the few countries. We don't actually have a U.S. national team. We have a U.S. men's national team, and we have a U.S. women's national team. So we don't say U.S. national team, because if we say U.S. national team, so which is it? Is it your men's team or women's team? And when I don't often say it anymore because I've heard about it from a few of our players. When they say, what's your goal? My goal is to win a World Cup. And one of the players will always undoubtedly point out to me, you've already won 2 World Cups in the United States. I'm hoping tomorrow they can change that number. But the investment and the rate of return on your women's programs, especially at youth and developmental levels, it far exceeds anything you could do on the men's or boys' side. And this is, again, not a urging not to do something on the men's side. And I believe that it really can start with just a single person. And that single person, in most cases, unfortunately, and we've talked about this on diversity, is still a male, because it's males that, in 207 out of 209 FIFA members that are presidents. It doesn't have to be a president. It can be just about anyone. But the decision makers have to be willing to make a decision. Take a decision, support the decision, make it part of a long-term plan, make it a public statement. We're going to do this. That's the challenge. Have the courage to make that statement, get people behind you, get the resources behind you, and I guarantee you the rates of return will be higher. How hard would it be to spend that $1 million and qualify for a tournament like this? Costa Rica was here. Costa Rica, we would have played Costa Rica 5 years ago and it wouldn't have been a game. Costa Rica was here. Trinidad came within a hair against Ecuador of qualifying for the Women's World Cup. Now, I don't know about Ecuador in this case, but I know the budget Trinidad had for it. They didn't play a lot of games. They had an American coach, and they got into a repechaje with Ecuador and just missed out. So for a relatively small investment, you can play in a World Cup. That's not true on the men's side. So with that, I would urge those of you in leadership positions, have the courage to take those decisions, to make those decisions. They won't always be popular decisions, and in some places they'll be very unpopular decisions, especially in a world of limited resources. We at U.S. Soccer are almost always ready to help. And that doesn't mean we're going to send checks. But if we can help in any way, technical expertise, and not many countries call us on the men's side and say, send us your best players for technical expertise. But on the women's side, we do that. And we do that in CONCACAF primarily, but we've done that in Asia. We've had people go to Africa. And if you think we can help, happy to do it. Happy to do it. So just let us know. But in the end, it's not about us. It's about you. It's about the people in this room taking the first step. And the first step is be committed to doing it. The economic, the on-field, and the legacy rewards will come afterwards. And the social rewards, which will be the greatest, and are the right reasons for doing it, may not be the right place to start in doing it. So with that, I thank you. I wish my colleagues, again, from Japan, some amount of luck tonight. I wish our team just a little bit more luck. And again, for everyone that's been involved in this conference and this event, really, you should all give yourselves a round of applause. It's been a terrific, terrific event. And the sport has got limitless potential, in my view, on the women's side. And we're happy to be part of it and share any experiences we might have with you. So thank you for your attention and enjoy the afternoon.
Thank you so much, Sunil. Hey, may the best team win at the end of the day. I think that's my interpretation of what it is that you said. I mean, you also spoke about the fact that obviously there'll be plenty of success stories emanating from this World Cup. And judging from the trend of what we've seen so far here in Canada, the swelling support, the interest globally, we already know that Canada 2015 will break some records in viewership, just some of those, and hopefully in attendance as well. Now, the key to making this possible undoubtedly lies in the business side of the game, the marketing, the promotion of women's football. Having served 4 years as TSN's Vice President of Programming, he's now the President of Canada's highest rated and oldest sports television channel. From TSN, please welcome Stuart Johnston.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning, delegates. Really quite an honor. I want to thank Nicholas Eriksson for inviting me to speak. And it's been a pleasure to deal with Nicholas and the entire FIFA team, and I congratulate all of them on the tremendous success they've achieved in the last month. Now, before I begin, you'll have to excuse me, because I understand and appreciate that probably the large majority of you think of this sport, refer to the game as football. Well, I'm going to be referring to this as soccer. And I hope that you appreciate that in Canada we call the beautiful game soccer, and I will refer to that throughout the presentation. But I want to start with a little bit about us. Who are we? Bell Media. Bell Media is the largest media company in Canada, filled with a wonderful portfolio of assets that include linear TV, digital, radio, and advertising platforms. And within that, we have three key cogs that have helped with this tournament. CTV is Canada's #1 terrestrial broadcaster. TSN, the sports network, is Canada's #1 specialty or cable channel of any kind. And RDS, Réseau des Sports, is the #1 French cable or specialty channel in Canada. And together, we've brought Canadians every minute of action from this year's tournament in both official languages on TV, radio, and online. But CTV, TSN, and RDS, we are but a small part of Bell Media, which is a large company filled with leading networks and platforms. In fact, when you group us all together, Bell Media reaches 95% of the entire Canadian population each and every week. We are a huge conglomerate. So you might ask yourself, why did Bell Media, Canada's leading multimedia company, set its sights so keenly on women's soccer? Well, the answer actually dates back to 2002, and I promise I am not going to take you year by year through a chronology of how we're interested in women's soccer. But in 2002, FIFA brought what I believe was the first of its kind, the Women's Under-19 World Championship to Canada. Actually, it was in Edmonton, host of the bronze medal game and many other games throughout this tournament. I had just started my career at TSN, and this came across my desk, and we decided to pass. Another broadcaster televised the event. In fact, when I say we, I think I should say more honestly, I decided to pass on this. I did not think that this event would have any kind of resonance in Canada or any kind of impact on the sports scene in our country. Well, I was wrong. Oh, so very, very wrong. You know, I might have thought back and had a little more faith in women's soccer. The crowds were huge in Edmonton, filled that stadium. Unfortunately, my competitor had very, very impressive ratings, and the country rallied around the tournament. It gave us a glimpse of what the potential of women's soccer could be in Canada. Fast forward to 2011, the Women's World Cup in Germany. Our team did not fare very well, but the overall event was a huge success. And even our competitor, who had the television rights, we were not a partner of FIFA's at the time, they did well regardless of the team's performance. At the same time in 2011, we were negotiating with FIFA for the next cycle of rights. And we knew that the very first event in 2015 was going to be the Women's World Cup right here on home soil. And I imagine that the majority of broadcasters that negotiate with FIFA for their television rights place if not all the emphasis, a large emphasis on the men's World Cups that come within that package. Well, here at Bell Media, we put significant value on the Women's World Cups when negotiating that deal, and particularly, obviously, the one at home. Well, when FIFA, we weren't going to make the same mistake that we did in 2002. But let me tell you, this was not an easy decision. This was not a slam dunk. This was not a lock that the Women's World Cups would continue to grow and the country would embrace this event particularly. There was a lot of risk involved. But when FIFA awarded us the rights, I can tell you that Bell Media took a leap of faith and committed fully to the Women's World Cup. So sometimes it's good to have faith, but it's also very good to be lucky. And 9 short months after our Canadian team finished dead last at the Women's World Cup in Germany, our team went to London for the 2012 London Olympics, and they fought and they clawed their way to a bronze medal. It was quite impressive. And some of you might remember the semifinal match during the Olympics, Canada versus USA. This game was epic. It had it all. It had drama, it had controversy, it had heartbreak. Well, Sunil, at least for some of us, it had heartbreak. And a staggering 3.7 million Canadians watched that game. For our small population, that is a huge number. Nearly a third of all Canadians consumed some of that game, and I can tell you, needless to say, it was thrilling for all of us at Bell Media to see the appetite for women's soccer across Canada. 3 years after that, 13 years after the 2002 Under-19 event, takes us to inviting the world to Canada. And I want to take the next little while to talk about how we prepared and executed our coverage of this year's Women's World Cup. It all began early on with a great partnership with Canada Soccer. Huge congratulations to Victor and Peter in their efforts to unify our country around women's soccer and importantly prove that Canada is a capable, worthy, and world-class host. I can tell you that our success at Bell Media would not have been possible without their efforts. We also had great support from the corporate community, and particularly 2 major FIFA sponsors, Coca-Cola and Adidas. Coca-Cola brought to Canadian fans the first ever FIFA Women's World Cup trophy tour. And as this trophy traveled across Canada for 2 months, a vast area, Bell Media's platforms covered that journey. In fact, when the stop came to Toronto, I attended. I brought my young kids with me. It was fun, it was interactive, it was engaging. It was a wonderful celebration of women's football. With these companies, we found similar visions that the success of this tournament could go beyond anyone else's expectations. Now, we knew we had to have an amazing promotional campaign, and it all began right under our very own roof. We held several company-wide information sessions for our staff with 2 objectives. 1, we wanted to get them as excited as we were about this tournament, and 2, we wanted to send them out as ambassadors for this event. If they happen to be talking to clients, partners, even friends and family, we wanted them armed with information and, most importantly, enthusiasm, and we succeeded. And that takes us to what we were planning to do. As we all know, this tournament expanded significantly this year. All 52 matches have been broadcast in Canada through our platforms live in both English and French. And that's important because the French population makes up 25% of our entire population. We streamed every game online, and we had extensive radio coverage across the country. Several months prior to the start of the tournament, we appointed a longtime senior producer at TSN, his name is Jim Panousis, as the head of all TSN soccer production, or Bell Media soccer production. This is a position that had never been created before. It was newly created, and I think demonstrates our commitment to football, and it was in anticipation of this event. Jim worked closely with FIFA on all of our Women's World Cup production this year, and we knew that in coordination with FIFA TV, we were accessing the biggest, most impressive, and technologically advanced coverage of a Women's World Cup ever. FIFA had 18 cameras on their games. We added 4 more to be able to tell our own Canadian stories. Our production team worked really closely internally with various business units such as sales and marketing and programming and brand partnerships. Overall, we had about 100 staff working and touching this tournament, several of whom were embedded with the tournament since January. We assembled a large and top-level group of broadcasters to be the face of our coverage. And that includes 3 former national team members, and actually 2 of whom, Cara Lang and Claire Rustad, who played on that infamous 2002 under-19 team. We built a brand new set in our Toronto studios at TSN that debuted on June 6th with opening kickoff. We also built a new travel set so that our commentators could get to the key games and broadcast on site. Overall, we knew it was incredibly important to tell stories. Carl Eric mentioned storytelling. It's certainly a pride of ours and a passion of ours, and we needed to tell stories that mattered to Canadians, stories on and off the pitch. We invested heavily in our storytelling. We produced over 50 features, not only just from Canada, but all over, from USA, as far away as Dominica, Brazil, and England. But there's one story I'm particularly proud of. It was called Favela United. We sent our senior investigative reporter to Brazil with a staff of 4 production crew for 2 weeks, where they researched and filmed an inspiring story about how street soccer can help young girls in favelas escape a life of drugs and crime. It was very powerful and very well received by our audience. And that really led into our overall strategy of we need to make these players household names. I mentioned that we can reach 95% of all Canadians, and we launched a massive television, radio, and online campaign promoting our coverage. But we did something a little extra. In Toronto, we acquired 1 out of every 4 transit shelters for our FIFA World Cup broadcast signage. When you walk the streets in Toronto, you could not miss them. You have to remember, Toronto is Canada's biggest city, most populated city, and it didn't host a game, as we all know. As a national broadcaster, if we were going to be successful, we knew we had to bring up the awareness in Toronto and engage this population center that represents 1/3 of the entire Canadian population, and we think we were successful. It also helped when we had Team Canada players who saw their own posters walking the streets of Toronto, sent them out on their own social media avenues, and we certainly love when things go viral. We launched, about a month before the tournament, a new online hub for all FIFA content. In the month of June, it drove 6 million page views, a huge number for us, and also drove a fantastic amount of traffic through all our mobile platforms. This is how our audience is consuming this content. So, June 6th arrives, maybe June 5th, the eve of, and we ask ourselves, what more could we have done? We didn't think much. We prepared, we promoted, we were ready. There's a line from an old baseball movie. It goes a little bit something like this: if you build it, they will come. Well, I can tell you, on the eve of that first game, we held our breath, we held on to that faith, and we asked ourselves, will the country watch? Well, I'm very pleased to say they did. The opening game, very first game of the tournament, broke the all-time audience record for any Women's World Cup game or broadcast in Canada. We went on to break that 3 more times. Now, to illustrate just how big those numbers are, the Canada versus Switzerland game was broadcast live head-to-head against a Stanley Cup hockey championship game and nearly equaled the audience. And for this hockey-obsessed country, that is a remarkable achievement. Nearly 20 million Canadians have consumed some part of this tournament. That is well more than half of the country. And something I really think is cool is that young girls are taking this in like never before. This is something we'd hoped would happen. Again, nearly half of this demographic have consumed some part of the tournament so far. And as rights holders of the 2019 and 2023 Women's World Cups, this bodes very well for us. Not only because hopefully that audience grows and stays with us through our future broadcasts, but maybe they will be inspired to play. Sunil talked about that. Maybe this has sparked an interest in those city centers where games were played and will only help to enhance what is already a very strong Canadian program. We all know big audiences for those home team games are great, but even games that did not feature Team Canada had great record-breaking audiences. The semifinal with USA and Germany, over 1 million viewers. Really just fantastic numbers not featuring Team Canada. And we know, we've seen the reports all around the world. The audiences have been growing and breaking records everywhere. I'm very pleased, delighted in fact, to say that from a sales and advertising standpoint, we've exceeded our expectations and revenue targets. In fact, there's been many games where we've been completely sold out of our commercial inventory. Now, normally, I'd be hesitant or reluctant to share that information with this group, FIFA, and especially Nicholas, who might be in the room, as they might hold it against me, but we've got a long-term deal, so I think I'm okay. We went all in on this tournament. We think we found a winning formula. Preparation, production, promotion, and like I've mentioned a few times, a little bit of faith. Really, our entire team, from story editors to producers, they embraced this event with a passion I'm really proud of. We gave this event the star treatment it deserves. And I think it's fair to say that Bell Media has helped in the success that FIFA and the Canadian Soccer Association has achieved in growing awareness and engagement in women's soccer and soccer in general in Canada. You know, we didn't do all this because we're nice people and have big hearts, although that is true. This has been an investment. We are FIFA's broadcast partner in Canada for the next 11 years. And it has been fantastic that year one of this new relationship has seen such a smash success. Absolutely wonderful. But it also sets the stage for a very bright future. You know, our journey to this afternoon's final of the Women's World Cup 2015 Canada has been transformative for our company. And I hope it inspires you to see that women's soccer is not only good for business, it's great for business. Thank you for listening. It's been a privilege. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stuart, and I hope that Bell Media and TSN are prepared for another home run in terms of the viewership for the final later on today, even though Canada isn't there. But as you said, you've seen the trend and you've seen the great support for all of the matches here at Canada 2015. So Canada really will be remembered for a number of great reasons. Another one of them is an awesome program initiated here by FIFA, the first edition of the FIFA Female Leadership Program, FLDP. FIFA, of course, continues to actively be involved in the growth of the women's game, this time specifically targeting those stats that have said that the numbers of women in leadership generally are too low. It's been a continued discussion for the longest time, and now FIFA is actively taking a stance and taking action. So let's talk about this wonderful initiative, a joint team effort from FIFA as well as Think, School of Creative Leadership, working together with, of course, those selected potential leaders to make it a resounding success. To tell us more, we've got Natasha Barnvale here with us, who works at Think on in-company programs and also runs Present Change, which is a coaching and leadership development company. A round of applause, please.
For the past 10 years, I've worked on the topic of leadership development, but I don't believe I've ever stood in front of a group that is such diverse, divergent cultural background, religious background, ethnic background. You make it work because you have a passion that unites you, football. The story I would like to tell you today is a story about leadership, it's a story about diversity. And although I'm a woman and a Western woman, I believe this is a story that concerns us all, men and women. I will tell you why, and also what you can do to play your part. In preparation for this speech, I talked to some of your colleagues, and one of them told us that women in football, the topic of women in football is like a small stone in your shoe, some grit, and it's bothering you as you go about doing all the things you love doing for football. Some of you might just want to take it out because it is uncomfortable. But for the next 30 minutes, I will be that small stone. In many parts of the world, we've come a long way in granting women access to education and health care. In some parts of the world, economic participation and political empowerment of women is steadily increasing. Unfortunately, in many parts of the world, we are still a long way off. Gender inequality is still a pervasive reality in our world. So let me take you to some of the statistics that prove my point. For the last 40 years, the number of female graduates has improved and has grown twice as fast as men. Women graduates globally now constitute 52%. Let's compare that with this number. Only 15% of boards Only 50% of a board is constituted by women. Let me show you another example. In the US, 85% of consumer purchases are made by women. They buy 92% of food, 93% of vacations, and gentlemen, even 65% of new cars. Women control a massive piece of consumer wealth. But only 3% of marketing directors are women. It's not surprising that women often feel misunderstood by marketeers. Now let's look at the global population. 49.6% of our global population is constituted by women. And I made a point of not rounding off this percentage. The 0.4% represents the 16 million girls that are missing. Now let's compare this with leadership and political participation. The percentage of women in parliament has doubled in the last 20 years, but still only 22% of national parliamentary seats are held by women. As of January 2015, only 10 women have been heads of state. So what does it mean? Even if women graduate in such large numbers from universities, they're still underrepresented at the top of companies. Even if they control a massive piece of consumer spending, they're virtually uninvolved in branding. Even if they constitute almost half of our world population, they hardly hold any political sub-seats. What are we missing out on? What is the opportunity? So some of the most compelling findings about the benefits of diversity have come from the world of business. A great number of studies have looked at gender diversity and the impact on business. So gender diversity is known to foster innovation and creativity. More diverse teams often outperform teams of experts. They're better at problem solving, they give broader thinking, which lead to better solutions. One way to explain this is the way in which men and women tend to think. It's slightly different. Women integrate details faster. They arrange bits of data into complex patterns. They make decisions, and as they make decisions, they tend to weight more variables, consider more options, and also see a wider array of possible solutions. Men, on the other side, they're more likely to focus their attention on one thing at a time. They're very good in analyzing information in a more linear path. And so these differences stem from differences in brain structure as well as differences in hormone levels. In our highly complex marketplace, depth and breadth of vision is a definite asset, and women are built to employ this perspective. So having diverse boards also leads to better outcomes. Research on a global scale found that companies with at least one female board member outperformed companies with no women on their board by 26% in terms of share price. Let me show you another example. Since the 1950s, hundreds of studies have assessed the differences in leadership styles between male and female managers. And one difference found is that female leaders on average are more democratic. And men, more often than women, adopt a top-down command and control style. So some of the leadership behaviors that women adopt more frequently are people development, inspiration, and participative decision-making. Men, on the other hand, are more known to use control and corrective action and individualistic decision-making. So none of them is good or bad. They both help in increasing organizational performance, but there is a difference in style. And because there's a difference in style, they make contributions to different aspects of the dimensions that improve organization performance. Organization performance relies on the complementarity and diversity of behaviors. Gender diversity brings leadership variety. Again, let me show you that I'm talking about a business case for women. The average operating profit over 3 years for companies with the most diverse, gender-diverse management teams was 48% higher than the industry average over those same years. So it's important to note here that this business case becomes more and more strong if there are more women involved. So there seems to be a magical percentage of 30%, or on average 3 women on a board, that makes this happen. So just one woman is not going to cut it. You need to get to a percentage of at least 30. Women tend to take a more holistic and broader perspective of any issue. Women act differently upon core values associated with sustainability. When women are promoted to leadership roles, companies are more likely to have more ecologically healthy and sustainable relationships. Companies with more women on board positions contribute significantly more to social initiatives and charitable funds. Women specifically care about the well-being of the employees in the organization. They're more inclusive and they have minority voices being heard. And as the number of women on boards increases, corporate social responsibility ratings also improve. CSR ratings help to improve a corporate reputation, which in turn makes it easier to attract and retain talent. Fortune 500 companies with a higher percentage of women on boards of directors were also found more likely to be on the world's most ethical companies list. So, again, what does it translate to in terms of business results? Fortune 500 companies with 3 or more women on their board for at least 4 years, they significantly outperformed those with less than 3 women. The return on invested capital is more than 60%. Diversity brings better outcomes. We've seen that the representation of women in management and corporations' financial performance, there is a definite link. Now, it's hard to say it's a causation, it's a correlation, there is a connection, but the connection seems to be very strong. Whatever compels excellent corporate performance, we now know it is linked to gender diversity. What else did we see? Critical mass is critical. You have to get to 30% women in order to reap the benefits of this dynamic. So I was very pleased to hear a Swedish colleague say that you have at least 30% of women. This is the minimum. So let's have a look at the leadership pipeline. Women, this is a study conducted by McKinsey, and they found that at entry level in companies, 52% are women. But as you gradually go up the corporate ladder, they leave. They're not making it to the next level. They stay where they are. So at every level, women are getting out of the pipeline. The pipeline is leaking. Only 2% of CEOs are women. So why are we losing them? One problem is time. It hasn't been that long since women have been involved in the world of business. So you might say, time will heal this, time will make this better. But you see, here is the problem with time. The World Economic Forum has been measuring the global gender gap for the last 9 years. And during that time, the world has only seen a very, very small improvement in the gender gap. They did a report in 2014, and they said that the gap for economic participation and opportunity now stands at 60% worldwide. It's closed by only 4% in the last 9 years. They also calculated that based on this trajectory, with all else remaining equal, it will take another 81 years to close the gap. Women executives are ambitious, and like men, they say they are ready to make some sacrifices in their personal lives to make it to the top management job. Many women aim just as high as men do. So what is holding them back? At least two deeply intertwined aspects are holding them back: institutional obstacles and entrenched mindset. And I will talk to both of these. The path to the top is not an easy one for men, but women face additional obstacles. Let's look at some of these. Double responsibilities. It's also sometimes called the double burden syndrome. The combination of work and domestic responsibilities weighs heavy for women. Women often remain at the center of family life, with all the attendant constraints: maternity, child rearing, organizing family life, and taking care of the elderly. The impact of the constraints may vary from one country to the other, but it is true for most countries that women who are primary breadwinners are also the primary caretakers. And whenever I join a group of professional women, it doesn't take very long for the question to be asked, sometimes whispered, just how do you do it? Anytime, anywhere. So this double burden is virtually incompatible with the demands associated with senior management. The dominant bundle in the business world these days equates leadership with unfailing availability and total geographic mobility at all times. The promotion model also presupposes a linear career path with no space for career breaks. Combined with double responsibilities that many of the women carry, it makes it very, very hard to get to the top seats. Another reason why it can be more difficult for women to be selected for the top management jobs is that their management experience is not sufficiently diverse. Attaining experience in managerial functions such as operations, sales, research, product development, and general management is crucial. And the reality is that women are often siloed in managerial functions such as human resources, communication, and as a result, they can only go up the corporate ladder to a certain point. Now, it's important to note here that women's individual and own choices also contribute to this. Many young women, just like young men, start off very ambitious. And while they never believe that they lose their abilities, they do make different choices. They sometimes turn down advancement opportunities. They sometimes don't take positions because they think it's too risky. They don't have the skills yet to do it. And sometimes they just have a desire to stay in a role that they're in because it has personal meaning to them. They're making a difference where they are. So let's look, what have companies done? What have companies done to address this? Companies also have a big stake in increasing the participation of women because of the business case. Nobody's found the key yet, but I'll share 5 examples of initiatives that at least prove they have made an impact. Commitment at all levels. Visible CEO commitment is one of the most effective gender diversity initiatives. Building a truly gender diverse company which supports the development and promotion of women at the highest level can only succeed with the strength and the power of the top management, with the endorsement at the highest level. But while it's crucial, it's not enough. It's not enough to have just the top of the organization involved. Building an inclusive corporate culture requires everyone's commitment. Female leadership programs, and at the introduction we also briefly spoke about the FIFA Female Leadership Development Programs, and I'll get back to that. But female leadership programs are crucial as a diversity initiative. Why? Because the individual development of women is at the heart of any gender diversity initiative. It helps women become more aware of their potential. It supports them in managing their careers in a male-dominated environment. Networking is a super important part of any female leadership development program, as are coaching and mentoring. Mentoring and sponsoring. So what do sponsors do? They create opportunity for talent. And some executives make it to the top without any sponsors, but most executives say they gained new opportunities, a new network, they gained active support from such relationships. Great sponsors believe in the talented women they sponsor. They help them, they open doors for them, and they give them exposure. They are an advocate for their advancement. It all starts with measuring. If you don't know the numbers, you don't know how to create improvement. Understand the data. Understanding the data is the first step towards awareness, understanding, and also dedication to improvement. What gets measured becomes visible and actionable. And finally, enabling processes. So companies who are adamant about increasing the share of female leadership, they have implemented policies, they've implemented processes to ensure they don't penalize women's careers. They intend to have neutral recruitment, evaluation, and promotion systems. They're helping to create the conditions that will facilitate work and family balance. And while many companies, the majority of companies actually, are implementing measures to reduce gender diversity, very few of these companies have been successful. So let me take you for a swim. The water is cool and soft, and you're gliding through the water. You're making your strokes, you're speeding through the water. Can you hear the bubbles alongside your body? You feel your strokes are steadily moving you ahead. You feel in great shape. Now let's turn around and swim back to the shore. You continue kicking your legs, but now you need to work hard to move forward. You're moving forward only inches now. Your breathing becomes labored, and you're getting really tired. And suddenly, you don't feel so great about yourself anymore. And you realize it wasn't your swimming talent that got you that far, that got you so easy on your way. It was the current that took you for a ride. You see, the water never changed, but the current did, and with it, your ability to move ahead. The swimming example I just gave you is from a book, The Hidden Brain, and it describes beautifully what it feels like for many women in the corporate world. Companies have been designed and built by men for men. So many of the organizational structures and the practices were made to fit men's life at the time when companies came into existence. Women constituted only a very small part of the workforce. The current is with the men, not the women. So their history is just one reason why many companies have not been successful in bringing women on board, bringing them to the very top. One of the most powerful barriers to advancing women are entrenched mindsets. So I don't believe women are deliberately excluded from leadership opportunities. I think rather a range of cultural assumptions and patterns of interaction, they benefit men while putting women at a disadvantage. Humans are deeply social animals. Our beliefs, our desires, our aspirations, our behaviors, they're affected by the social preferences, our relationships, and the social context in which we live and make decisions. We are group-minded individuals. And from a very early age, we are taught how to see the world. We are forever deeply influenced by the social norms of our families and the cultures we grow up in. I'm sad to say that the Dutch Lionesses have already left the tournament, so I thought about bringing the Lions back. In most cultures, masculinity and leadership are closely linked. The ideal leader, like the ideal man, is decisive, assertive, and independent. In contrast, women are expected to be nice, caring, and unselfish. So this creates what is often called the double bind. Women who are successful in traditionally male domains are viewed as competent but not very likable. And at the same time, female leaders who use a conventionally feminine style may be liked, but are not seen as competent. They are often viewed as being too emotional to make tough decisions and too soft to be strong leaders. There has been substantial research over the last 40 years in cognitive psychology and behavioral economics, and this has challenged our conventional wisdom that our behavior is under the exclusive control of our rational mind. We now know that human behavior is heavily influenced by subconscious, instinctive, and emotional responses. So the Lions told us about the phenomenon that is called implicit stereotypes, how we subconsciously associate groups of people with certain traits or certain activities. We're used to seeing successful executives acting like men, so leaders are expected to emulate the same behavior. Another well-researched dynamic at play is group favoritism. So we have a preference to work with people who are like us. This makes us prefer to someone of our same nationality, the same gender, the same race. So we could say, let things just continue the way they are. Eventually things will work out. Let time take its course. But the problem is that our companies, our societies, your organization, and your member associations deserve better. It's not okay that so much of our talent is left by the wayside. What can you do? Many of you in this room are leaders, and leadership starts with owning and taking accountability for what we can change. What are you doing to ensure that your member association values and advances women? How are you building an inclusive culture? Are you welcoming initiatives to help build the capability of women? Are you supporting their growth and development? Are you taking time to mentor young female upcoming talent? Are you taking time to sponsor them, to give them opportunities, to give them exposure, to introduce them to your network? Do you know the numbers? And are you making sure that the processes, the policies in your organization actually support the advancements of women? We started yesterday with the FIFA Female Leadership Development Program. FIFA is sponsoring 35 female leaders, high potential women from around the world to participate in this program. We had the kickoff yesterday evening, and I can tell you, the energy, power, and spirit of these women is magnificent. Let's take it out of the program into the world and let's make the change, inspiring the change. Are your assumptions helping or hindering the advancement of women? One of the world's most successful businessmen, Warren Buffett, said that being successful was easy. He only had to compete against half of the population. Are you asking yourself, am I really ready to believe that women are as talented as leaders as men? And if this is what I believe, am I acting on my belief? What signals is your behavior sending? Are you aware of your own behavior? When there is a woman present at a meeting table, do you include her? Do you ask for her opinion? Our actions say more than our words. How can you make a difference? Remember the small stone, the grit in your shoe I talked about. This grit, if we put it in an oyster, has the potential to grow into something beautiful. If any organization could make a difference to gender equality, it is yours. If anyone could be an example for the world how women are included, it is you. Football has the potential to change lives. Building an inclusive culture, embracing diversity, it doesn't happen overnight. Bringing women all the way to the top of your organization, bringing more women all the way to the top of your organization, doesn't happen overnight. It will take time. But, ladies and gentlemen, that time is now.
So much, Natasha, and yes, quite rightly agreed. The time is now. Now, we did also, of course, have the great pleasure of seeing the Lionesses in action yesterday and the fighting spirit there. Congratulations to England, the bronze medalists. And let's also remind the men that it is the Lionesses' job to hunt. So, men, without us, you'll starve. I'd also like to say congratulations to FIFA and to think the FLDP, as Natasha mentioned, did kick off with great aplomb yesterday, and this is just such a wonderful initiative. Continue the great work, Natasha. So we've heard throughout the course of the symposium from some industry leaders, from some members from the different federations, but what is the view of the players? I mean, do they also share the consensus that women's football is on the rise? And what more needs to be done? Let's hear from the players now. Please welcome to the stage an individual who finished with 271 caps for her national team. She was a captain, inducted in the National Soccer Hall of Fame. Please welcome Julie Foudy.
It's never a good sign when you come up in my big girl shoes, which I put on for you today, when you're about to cramp when you walk up to the stage, because I'm getting so old. I played a little game of pickup soccer yesterday with, as we call them, the old bags, a bunch of Australians. Sarah Walsh, you weren't there, by the way. Where were you? Where? There you are. You were not there. Okay, right. And I am cramping from walking up. That's how bad it is. I heard Sunil. I caught the end of his speech. I'm here covering the World Cup, of course, now for television. I've been able to stay in women's football and the great game through television after I retired. And I heard him wish the Japanese Federation good luck, as do I. I also err on the side, though, of wishing the U.S. Soccer Federation a little bit more good luck. And mostly that's a little bit selfishly driven because we've been talking about this 99ers narrative when our U.S. team last won the World Cup for a long time. And honestly, I'm a little bit tired of talking about those 99ers. But I will say, today I'm going to bring us back 16 years to the 99ers because there's a few things I think we can learn from that. And in particular, one of the things we always talked about as players in 1999 and before 1999 was we wanted to create an event that left a legacy. And we wanted to create a World Cup, a women's World Cup that set a standard. And someone asked me after that World Cup, they said, do you think you were pioneers, or do you think what you did was an anomaly? And I thought it was a really good question. Do you think you were pioneers, or were you an anomaly with what happened, with the success of that World Cup? Because I'll tell you, as players, and as Sunil mentioned, one of the things we fought for hard was to do it right, to do it in big venues, to do it in big stadiums, to make it a national event with a national footprint, not regionalized, not in smaller stadiums. So the players were very vocal about that, and that story got out there. The one thing I don't think people knew enough about is that really the person responsible for that happening, going big instead of doing it on a smaller scale, and believe me, smaller would have been easier, of course, because we knew we could get 10,000 people. We knew if we kept it regional, it would look good on television because all the stadiums, which was the first time we were going to show every game live on U.S. television, all the stadiums would be packed. So there was every reason and lots of reasons to say, yeah, let's do it smaller and play it safe so it looks good. But there was one person in U.S. soccer who said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do it big, we're going to do it right, and we're going to set the standard for what the Women's World Cup should look like. And that was Alan Rothenberg, who was our president of U.S. Soccer. And I tell that story because, again, as players, we thought 16 years ago when that happened and you saw the numbers that were coming to these games and you saw the television audience, we thought, oh my gosh, this is not only great for our country, but you know what's going to be great? is we're going to be talking about this global revolution of women's football. We're going to be talking about how a player in Argentina saw that game, or a player in Scotland saw that game and said, oh my gosh, watching that game changed my soccer career. We're going to talk about federations that saw that game or saw that tournament and said, oh my gosh, that Women's World Cup changed the way I'm going to support my women's program. And the sad thing is now 16 years later, I'm standing here, and I think you could argue that global revolution hasn't happened for women's football. Yes, we've made strides, but I don't think it's fast enough. I think you could argue that global revolution is still happening with just a handful of federations. I think you could just look on one hand and say, wow, they're doing it right. They're putting resources behind their women's programs, right? And that is why I'm so honored to be standing here today, because I look around the room and I see 200, I think Sunil said 207 of the 209 member associations present. And I see the leaders of these members associations. And I see that if you have in the room people who have the courage to say, look, I know this may not be a popular decision. I know this isn't the safest decision, but this is the decision I'm going to make as the decision maker of my federation, is I'm going to support women's soccer. Think about the change there. Think about that. Because I think a lot of people talk about grassroots, and we talk about getting the base and getting developing players and all of those things, and women's soccer starting there. I would argue women's soccer only starts when the people at the top, as we saw with U.S. soccer, when the people at the top say, this is a directive for us. This is going to be our legacy. We are going to build this women's program. And unless it starts at the top, the base is never going to be able to be built. But when it starts at the top, as we've seen with federations recently, France, England, when it starts at the top, the base starts to grow. And when the base starts to grow and you start developing players, and you start getting more success at that level, success and winning, we all want to be winning, that turns to attention. And when you start winning and you start getting attention, you start getting sponsors. And when you start getting sponsors, you start getting more attention. And it becomes this beautiful cycle that we've seen on the men's side. But we haven't been able to build out that base on the women's side. And that's the frustration as a player who in 1999 looked at that and thought, this is going to change things. This is going to change things. And that's where I think, oh my gosh, the power of this room right here. Because if you can build that base, and I get it, in the United States, it's a different animal. There are girls playing, it's easier for access for girls to get opportunities. It's not the same fight, I get it. And in a lot of countries, culturally, it's not accepted for women to play. But here's the great news. Here's the great news is that if you can have the courage to leave that legacy, not only are you building a team that's going to be successful on the field, and as we've heard Natasha saying and Stuart talked about before that, what you're building too is a healthier society. You know, this is half of the population we're not tapping into right now. And what's the downside of that, really? The downside, I don't see any. The upside is you have happier, healthier, stronger women that are finally having a chance to go after their dreams. And I look at the 10 principles that FIFA has put together, and I think they're phenomenal. I look at the leadership program. I think it's phenomenal. I think these are all great steps. But they're great steps only if they're implemented. Only if every federation goes home and says, hey, guess what? We're going to change things. And it starts with us. And it starts now. And that's really the legacy that can be left with all of you sitting in the room as decision makers, as change makers. And it's not just with players, as Natasha was talking about. It's the whole body of work around women's football. Who in your federation wakes up every day and says, it's my job to think about the women's program. Do you have that person? And if not, how can you find someone? Because it starts from the top. And if it starts from the top, this is a happier, healthier world we're all living in. And that other half of the population, I mean, this is an untapped market with tremendous potential. Tremendous potential for revenue, but tremendous potential just to be great leaders in life. And that's the thing that I'm so hopeful for. And that's the thing we will continue to advocate for a long time, because I once heard a quote, "Success isn't a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice." And that was my favorite quote I heard years ago. Success isn't a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. And I would say the same thing about leadership. Leadership isn't a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. And you have the opportunity here to make a great choice for women's football. It starts now, as Natasha said. And it starts with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Judy, for those words and for being here today, even though, of course, you're still recovering from the game yesterday. Still very much active in the women's game, and another really sterling example of women in leadership when it comes to football. Let's hear another player's view about the beautiful game. She captained Spain here in their inaugural World Cup appearance, and in addition to the Spanish national football team, at club level she plays for Bayern Munich. Please welcome Veronica Vero Buquete.
Hi everyone. I'm so sorry, but my English is not perfect, so I will do it in my language. That is a beautiful one, it's Spanish. So after this, Spanish. Después de estos grandes speakers, es difícil venir aquí enfrente de todos vosotros y poder estar a la
After all these great speakers, quite frankly, I feel a little worried after coming and be up to the standards that they have done, because I don't have the speaking abilities that they have. But I do have a story, however, that I want to tell you. I have this story that is, quite frankly, the same story that millions of women have in Spain and around the world. I started to play when I was 3 years old, and every single day I used to go and train. I used to go on weekends, I used to go to the matches, and I couldn't actually enter into the fields because there was actually a rule that girls and boys could not play together. Thank God that changed now, and it's not quite the same thing. I couldn't change in the dressing rooms, I couldn't shower, and many years later on I just had to be on my own, because I was not one of the ones that I could be with my teammate, because I was the only girl that played with the boys. So I grew up, as many of you, with certain things that I was kind of typecast as a feminine, as a woman. I didn't know that I could be a professional. I didn't know that there was a selection of football. They didn't know that there was a national team. I didn't know I could be a professional player. So can you imagine when I look at my career, and I couldn't even dream about those things at that particular time. And all of that has to change. During my life and during my whole career, my personal experiences, etc., because I am totally convinced and committed that we, the players, are the ones that have to be involved. We are the ones that have to take an active role in what we're doing now. I want to be there in a few years' time and see what can I do. What can I do that's right? What particular action is wanted from me? I have played in Spain, in the United States, in Russia, in Sweden and Germany, and I have learned an awful lot. When I move from place to place, I have been there as a player, I have been there as a part of the administrative and what have you. I had different experiences, and I think that I've learned from each of them, and I've been able to use them and apply them to career nowadays. And I think that the spaces that have been created in there, and we should actually listen to what the other people have done. We should see where we can find the spaces that we can develop ourselves. What do we need? What does a women's club require from us? What do we require from our people who are at the top? What are the people? What do we need from the people who are at the front of all of this? I think that these are certain basic elements that we have to say. We have to know that we are absolutely, and we have to be aware, I'm sorry, that there is differences, huge difference. We are not seeking to be treated immediately as an equal, but we are thinking that perhaps they should be treated with consideration, because when you ask a child, what are you dream of, and he says, oh, I want to be a millionaire, what do? We take a dream because we want to take a dream, because we want to be there. And I think that this is something that should be respected. This is something that perhaps we can do it ourselves, because after all, we can do it. We can all get together and do this. Even though that it seems that our commitment is to a certain idea is a little bit romantic and we're perhaps not completely realistic, but no, this is something that we have to defend. We have to be advocate for these particular changes. Well, I have a reason that something that can actually help is the finances after all, because we cannot compete being equal because we don't have the money that the United States has. We cannot expect that type of investment. Sometimes there are a lot of countries that we cannot go to the World Cups. 95% of their players are not professionals. They have to work. They have to have a second job, so because otherwise they wouldn't be able. So then they train at 9 o'clock at night. We cannot represent our country that way. We cannot represent our sport, because there are millions of people who are going to watch the games and they are not going to watch us, because we have to stay at home, because we cannot afford to go somewhere else. So we need installations, preparations, we need guidance, and all of this. We cannot come to the World Cup if we do not have better conditions, if we do not travel in time, if we are not adapted to the change of hours, for example, and we don't have the facility to be able to be here. We don't have the installations, we don't have the assistance of doctors and chiropractors and everything else. We can try. We know what's going to happen, we know what should happen, but we have to promote our games so we'll be able to cover all the bases. No, trainers. Let's look about trainers. We need quality, and I don't see women trainers, which would be absolutely ideal, but I just said trainers in general. This is what I'm talking about, because we cannot grow if we do not have somebody to help us out. If we head for that, we need people who are capable, people who are well qualified, who are interested, and we need that have these people to have the same ambition and to be able to have the same passion that we have. And then they consider that it is their obligation to give us the motivation and the training that we require. So I'm talking about professional trainers who can give everything else, that can be aware of all the sacrifices that all of the players are making, and that all the players deserve the respect and the distinction that is given to a professional player. And this is something that we can get if we can actually have the qualities that are expected of us. We have to convince people. We have to be motivators. We have to convince, we have to motivate the people that are actually playing at this particular time that we do have an objective in our career, and we feel that they have to dedicate themselves to the sport. This is not something that is a pastime. This is something that is going to be an involvement. We have to be an involvement from the beginning. We have to educate ourselves, be prepared for the future, so that in the future time, then perhaps we can help in one way or another. And therefore, we have to motivate people that they have to reach these goals, and they can help us with the education. And then with that motto, you can do it, you can do it. They have to inspire people like that. They can give us examples, because I have several examples that I can give you, not only sports excellence. I can give you some, for example, Marta, for example, because Marta's been my teammate for the last 10 years, and it's been absolutely fantastic. We can use it like that. My secretary, for example, my trainer can be a reference. Everybody else, everybody who's around, everyone that had a part, everybody that played a role in moving us forward, all of them can be examples of the people, and all of them can be examples of the things that we can achieve if we make our mind to do it. And we have to believe that it is possible. We also have to see what it is possible. For example, if we see other federations, the federations are trying to give us something by giving us some sort of mentoring, and then they're also trying to give us the working space. They are also trying to give us the training capacity. And then if we're going to trying to look at the different opportunities like championships and travels through Europe and everything else, for all of that we need to be prepared. We have to be willing to take the risk, and we have to be willing to play. And in conclusion, I would like to just stress out 2 points. What is actually motivates us is our passion for the game. And what moves us to do it is the vision. And the only thing that we expect from you is exactly the same. We want you to have the passion, to want to see that our work, you want to do the commitment, because that's the only form, that's the only manner that we're going to achieve whatever we have to get to, in order to get to be part of something. This is something that we all have to do together, because if we all work together, we can actually bring women's football to a different level, to a higher level. This World Cup has been absolutely fantastic. It has given us that spark that we need to keep on going, and to be here in 4 years' time, to be in a World Cup, this route that we have designed for ourselves, this is the right pathway. We are going to be there. We are going to achieve it. Let's think positively. We're going to be much better, because I'm not here because I'm me. I'm here to represent the women who are playing. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to give you a presentation of all the future players, the little girls who are now 4, 8, 80 years old, anything. Let them have something much better than we ever had. Let them have the opportunity that we didn't have. Let's do it together. And if we do it together, we can do it. And I hope that you give us the motivation as well, because if we have your support, I repeat, we can do it.
Thank you so much, Vera. And by the way, you speak very, very beautifully. You spoke from the heart. You shared your experiences. And of course, you made some very pertinent points when it comes to women's football. And though, as you said, some member associations can't expect the same level of commitment when it comes to finances that we've heard from what the United States of America is doing, we can't expect that yet. But the change will come, and of course we are going to make grounds in terms of getting to that stage where women's football is at that same level as the men's game. Now, Vero, I'm not going to let her go, because she's got one more duty here today, and that is announcing a winner. Now, there was a competition that was run since the World Cup started, run on the FIFA Women's World Cup Facebook page. A number of questions were asked on women's football development. A winner was selected. Now, this winner that will be announced by Vero very shortly gets 2 tickets to the final today. And in addition to that, they'll also have the wonderful opportunity of handing over the Live Your Goals Player of the Match Award at the stadium. So it's a beautiful prize, and Vero, you're going to be announcing the winner and, of course, handing over that prize.
Here she is.
All right, so Vero is going to be handing over the prize to our winner. In a round of applause, Iko Villanueva. Thank you so much, Vero, and congratulations, Iko. We'll see you at the stadium later on. So the signing of the Brighton plus Helsinki 2014 declaration by FIFA, that was in March this year, that was seen as another major milestone in the advancement and in terms of participation of women in sport. Now, this declaration is a guiding document of the International Working Group on Women and Sport, the IWG. Leading the work of the working group together with Ruth Maporisa of Botswana is none other than the co-chair, Carol Oglesby, who is here with us. A round of applause, please, Carol. Come up.
Just hit the green button. Thank you. On behalf of the International Working Group on Women in Sport, I want to extend my appreciation to the FIFA Executive Committee, especially Lydia Insakara, to Tatiana and all the Committee on Women's Football and World Cup Competition, and our wonderful Canadian hosts for this opportunity to share with you today. As Carol mentioned, the IWG formed an agreement with FIFA of such importance, it was felt that the leadership of women's programs in FIFA and the member associations should know more about the International Working Group. You see here that our vision and mission is completely compatible with your own aspirations for the FIFA Women's Program. Our aims, of course, are more specific to our own programs. First, to monitor the Brighton Declaration. I'm going to say more about that in just a moment or two. Also, to assure that women and women's issues are on the agenda of all international conferences and organizational business. We act as a contact and hopefully a serious resource for international women's development in sport. We implement our own strategic plans for each of the 4-year cycles in which we operate. And very importantly, we present a global conference on women in sport every 4 years. The International Working Group emerged from the first Global Women's Sport Conference in 1994 in Brighton, England. The Brighton Declaration was a document that was issued at that conference and has been utilized as a North Star guide for us since that time. We seek always to collaborate with all appropriate partners at government and non-governmental levels in order to achieve this women's development in sport and use all of our media and personal and organizational contacts to do that. This is a quick overview of our quadrennial conferences, and you can see that they are distributed as much as possible over the globe. From England in 1994 to sites in Japan, in Canada, in Namibia, Africa, and ending last year, 2014, in Helsinki. As well as the global conferences, we have annual meetings of our board, and we try to spread those meetings as well, because when we have our meetings, we also sponsor conferences and try to do some infrastructure building. For example, in 2005, we were very aware we had not gotten to the South American continent, so we had our annual meeting in Bogota, and joined with the government and with the Colombian Olympic Committee to inaugurate a women's sport organization at that time. So these are the efforts that we make to try to build a global coalition around women's sport. As you can see also, the figures on the right, the conference itself has grown substantially so that we had approaching 1,000 people at the conference 2014 in Helsinki. We really encourage the endorsement of the Brighton Declaration and now the Brighton plus Helsinki Declaration as a very tangible way to show that an organization is sponsoring and has a deep belief in gender equity. FIFA has their important 10 principles for the development of the women's program. We also have the 10 basic principles in operation in the declaration. And you see just a word or two as label for each of these principles. The full statement of the principle gives a much better picture of what all these promises mean. So I want to really encourage you to go to our website and look carefully at the full declaration, because these statements compose promises that are now made by FIFA to the women and girls of this association. FIFA joined the International Olympic Committee, the IPC, FISU, TAFISA, numerous Olympic committees at the national level, international federations, the National Collegiate Athletic Association in the United States, in making strong promises to women. And of course, it's very important that these are promises in all of these areas to be met. In all, since 1994, 437 organizations, large and small, a great diversity of regions, ethnicities, language groups have signed this commitment to gender equality. 4 years ago, I was privileged to travel to Costa Rica and represent the IWG as a person from the Americas to a signing by Laura Chinchilla, then the president of Costa Rica. The signing was timed to match with the introduction of the Costa Rican Pan American team to the country before they left for the games 4 years ago. It was a very, very great moment. We encourage and welcome all sporting bodies of all types to make a celebration of a signing ceremony. The steps to be taken are outlined here, but really it's very simple to just go to the IWG website, make a contact with us. The Secretariat is located now in Botswana, and the organization is very happy to assist with all the measures that would be a part of the signing, and we will do all the publicity that we can through our media as that takes place. As I mentioned, the declaration is a set of promises, and we're very concerned that the promises are kept. During the next 4 years, the IWG is going to be exploring how we might use the CEDAW mechanisms, the Convention for the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women, as mentioned by Heather Reed in her presentation the first day, how we could use the CEDAW mechanism to become a part of monitoring the progress of all organizations and in country to eliminate discrimination against women. As you see on the slide, the column on the left shows elements of CEDAW as generalized statements, but they're very aligned with the sport-specific tenets of the Declaration. We're all working towards changing society and changing sport to enable women to have more resources, more facilities, more education, more empowerment. CEDAW within it has a requirement that each country that's a signatory, and almost all United Nations countries have signed on to CEDAW, every 4 years they file a country report to show how they are meeting the requirements of CEDAW. And CEDAW itself also has 2 specific requirements about sport. But at this time, countries are really not addressing the women's sport equity issues in their country reports. So we're hoping that we can find a way to work with the sporting bodies and non-governmental organizations within countries to add additions and improvements to the country report through the shadow reports that are available and would be made to the public each time that the 4-year cycle for the country emerges. The 7th World Conference will be held in 2018 in Gaborone, Botswana. And we're looking forward to upwards of 1,200 people, participants or more, from government sectors, the IOC, international federations, National Olympic Committees, education groups, researchers, health organizations, coaches, teachers, youth. We hope that it's a grand gathering of the world in Gaborone. I want to recognize we have a representative from Botswana here, Susie Montsho. Susie, could you raise your hand? Any questions about Botswana could come to me or to, better yet, to Susie. My colleagues have sent some slides to show you what might be awaiting you in Gaborone. This is the convention center where the conference will be held. View of the beautiful hotel that is in the neighborhood. And of course, we always try to encourage people before and after the conference to participate, viewing the cultural life in the community. So please accept our invitation about 2018. We're hoping that each and every one of you and your peers at home will be visiting with us. The IWG looks forward to a significant partnership with FIFA and the member associations to help achieve the great aspirations that I've been privileged to hear at this conference. So all our best wishes now and in the future, and a safe journey home. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol and the IWG, for your presence here at this symposium. And we truly are looking forward to Botswana 2018. So today, really, the main focus and the conversations has been centering around making change happen and, of course, taking action after some very productive discussions. We heard from Carl Erik Nielsen about Sweden and expounding on governance. Sunil Gulati on how competitions have helped to add that gloss to Team USA. I love Stuart Johnston just really talking about the importance of promoting women's football and now how TSN as a broadcaster is enjoying all of the benefits of doing just that. A big thank you to Natasha and of course Think for joining FIFA in their crusade to raise to the fore the next batch of female leaders. So let's continue to talk about FIFA's action and the way forward for FIFA after all of this. Remember that we spoke about another major milestone here at this symposium, and I'd like to call to the stage Australian soccer official and former player, Vice President of the Asian Football Confederation and FIFA Executive Committee member, Moya Dodd. Remember, Moya had such an important role to play because she chaired that task force that was put together and developed the 10 key development principles for women's football. Let's hear more now from Moya.
Good morning, and thank you again for the opportunity to address you. I've been given the task of summarising your responses from this symposium based on your work group output and from the various calls from speakers. So I'm going to summarise what we think are the key calls to action that we've heard these last few days and seek your approval in each of the 3 areas that we've covered: governance, competitions and the business side of the game. And if you approve of these recommendations, we will take them forward via the Women's Football Task Force, working of course with the administration in FIFA and through our committee structures. So first of all, governance. This is what we heard as your call to action. that FIFA should issue guidelines on gender inclusiveness in football governance and management, and to keep the confederations and the members appraised and updated on those guidelines, and to itself be the role model for those guidelines, including these elements: a target of 30% women's participation, the tipping point, in all boards, committees and senior management roles; that women's football should be represented at the highest level on ExCo or as a director reporting to the CEO; and that women's football be fully integrated into the strategy and processes in every member association, including club structures, as adapted to their specific needs and situations. So on governance, is this what we want? Is this our call to action? Thank you. For competitions, for participation in the game, that FIFA should issue a strategy and plan and encourage and support the confederations and members to do the same, to make football female friendly, including through equally accessible participation, through national team programs, through coaching and refereeing opportunities and inclusion of women in all courses for those activities, and through club and league activity. And to continue to develop its competitions to showcase the best of the game worldwide, to improve football technically and increase the number of female coaches, referees and administrators. Is that what we want for competitions and participations, delegates? Is this our call to action? Thank you. And on the business side of the game, FIFA to issue a declaration and guidelines for all football stakeholders, including governing bodies and clubs, to resource football at all levels without discrimination as to gender, in fair financial proportion to our participation and our potential. And to develop and implement a high-growth commercial strategy for incubating and growing women's football and making it the highest value women's sporting property in the world. Is that what we want on the business side of the game? Is that our call to action? Thank you. Thank you for those recommendations, and thank you for the task of summarising them. I can assure you that the Women's Football Task Force will attack it with the energy and the urgency that I know you also feel. Let's do it before Julie Foudy gets old. Let's do it before I get any older. Let's make it happen. I mean, let's ask ourselves, which generation is going to enjoy full participation in our game? And I'd like to think it's not just for the girls who aren't yet born. I'd like to think that girls who are already born might have the chance to be full participants in our sport and in our society. So with your support, we'll get to work. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Moya. As she rightfully said, it's to work for all of us after what has been a successful staging of the symposium. Well, she did a great job of officially opening up the symposium on day one, and spoke about some key issues in women's football. This time around, she'll be bidding us all adieu. The final port of call for the formalities today is the closing remarks from, of course, FIFA Executive Committee member and a member of the International Olympic Committee. Please welcome Ms. Lydia Nsekera.
Chers membres du comité exécutif de la
members
FIFA,
of the executive
des
committee of the
confédérations et des
FIFA, the
associations membres,
confederations and the member
chers membres de
associations, dear
commission,
members of
instructeurs,
the
arbitres,
committees,
entraîneurs, mesdames, messieurs,
instructors,
bonjour.
referees, trainers,
La FIFA
ladies
est
and
fière
gentlemen,
d'organiser
hello. FIFA is proud to have organized this symposium. Since 1999, this organization organizes this event in order to support and to provide orientation and guidance to its member associations, associations with whom it works hand in hand to develop women's football. We are proud to be able to bring together so many people to discuss women's football. This symposium represents our commitment and the efforts that we make to promote football and to invest in this sport. For the world football community, this symposium is also an opportunity to define a global strategy for women's football. And in this, it represents a very important event for the future of the discipline. As you know, women's football has great growth potential. I hope that these last few days will have provided you with the necessary inspiration to work hard in developing women's football in your country and to use the potential that exists in women's football in order to create prosperity everywhere. I hope that these workshops provided you with the necessary tools to improve women's football and to create more opportunities for women in football. This year, you were able to see and to be supported by the work that was done by the working group, FIFA's working group for women in football. And I'd like to thank this working group that was led by Moredot. We must pay homage also to the work of all the other leaders that are now working in the world of football. They are not only a source of inspiration, but they are also an excellent example of commitment to positive change in football. We're happy to see more women leaders in football, and we are impatient to see that our work provides results in terms of improvements for female football, women's football. This year, these World Cups always allow us to shine light on women's football. And we have a unique opportunity to use this event to develop women's football, to make this sport more fair and more equitable, and to provide all young women an opportunity to participate in football. The last few weeks have been proof for all of us that women's football is extremely popular. Canada 2015 has been a great success. We have seen a great number of excellent matches, wonderful goals, and this has brought together supporters from all over the world and has increased the popularity of the game. This World Cup is not about to stop growing in the next few years. This competition has an important message to transmit. Women's football is a noble discipline, and the elite players are at a very high level. It is the most popular sport in the world, and the World Cup, the Women's World Cup, is the most important women's sport played. Here we'll have at least had 1.25 million spectators. More and more supporters, more and more sponsors and broadcasters are interested by women's football. This platform of visibility for the discipline keeps growing and allows us to continue to develop and promote this sport. This competition has a record number of viewers in the Americas, in Asia, and in Europe. It was also a smashing success on social media and on FIFA's YouTube channel. FIFA's YouTube channel had the best month of June ever, thanks to this Women's World Cup. And this year, a greater number of countries have been able to join this celebration of football because of a decision to increase the number of participating teams from 16 to 24. Not everyone has been able to win, of course, this year, but we were able to at least provide the basis for growth in the discipline. The more the participation increases, the more we will be able to encourage the development of women's football, and young women will be able to be inspired all over the world and will be inspired to play on the world stage. The teams that weren't able to go beyond the group phase will be back during the next edition and will have more experience. They'll be stronger and will be ready to face the pressures that they have to face and to face the big teams such as Germany, England and Japan. If we have many reasons to be thrilled about what is happening in the world of women's football, we also have to be realistic in terms of the state of women's football so that we can progress in a significant way in the future. There is no doubt that women's football is at an important turn in its history, but for most countries, it is still lagging behind compared to men's football. Women's football is about to be greatly recognized internationally, but we really all, and I emphasize all, have to intensify our efforts to guarantee this future. Its progression hasn't been necessarily sufficiently fast or as important as we would have liked. Now we have the possibility to change things long-term in women's football. It's the essence of this type of event, and it's also with this objective in mind that FIFA has organized Women's World Cup. That is why we continue to support women's football and the place of women in football. That is also why we expect from our member associations that they do the same. This challenge is sometimes more difficult to face in certain areas of the world because there are more obstacles or greater obstacles. But we all have to double our efforts in order to overcome these challenges and these obstacles wherever we may be. Today, I would like to pay homage to all the women all over the world who have made sacrifices and who fought for the cause of women's football. All those who face discrimination in their daily life and in their workplace. All those who didn't receive the support that they should have received. All those who managed to progress despite all these obstacles. We know that the fight for equality in our society is not an easy task. It is a fight that takes place at every moment of every day. Football is no exception. There is still a lot of work to do in order to make football a fair game for all. To start with, football, its role models and its leaders have to do more to get rid of the macho image that provides the message that it is a men's sport. That is not the image of football that we want to have made popular. That is not what we want. However, it's often the image that we see when we look at the representation of women in football organizations, whether it be in confederations or member associations. Also, when we look at the number of coaches and the number of referees, when we compare that with the number of men that hold these positions, we also see it in media coverage and the support given to women in the media when we compare it with the numbers with men's football. Also in the way that football is taught in schools and the way it is supported by governments, and the way the news are provided, sports news, and also the number of women that work in sports, in the area of sports, and also in terms of all the ways that not enough is done to support women's football. All that has to change. That is the key to success, the key that will allow us to make sure that football is fair and more successful. FIFA can't do this alone. We know that we have to do a lot more and that we'll never stop improving our discipline. But we also have to remind ourselves that we have already covered a lot, that we have done a lot since the first tournament in 1999. FIFA organized a large array of competitions, World Cup for the under-17, under-20, and the Olympic tournament. This year we've had more teams at this World Cup. We've had twice as many teams as in 2011. More people participated in the qualifying rounds also. But we still have to work to include the 81 remaining member associations. We are investing more and more in live broadcasts of FIFA events to make sure that broadcasters have the best images possible and that the amateurs can really watch all the competitions. We also designed development programs for football that allows us to work with existing programs and that covers the whole spectrum of football levels. We have now launched 600 projects in total so far of football developments. This year, there are more than 80 women's competitions that benefit from our support. Our programs encourages women and young girls to play football. And our support exists now in 50 countries in the world. In 2015, we launched a televised campaign and a social media campaign in order to support this initiative and to spread this message of gender equality. We also investing more than before in women's football. We have doubled our budget for the development of football we are reaching $22 million for the cycle from 2015 to 2018. And we provide at least 15% of all assistance funds to women's football. But in fact, a lot of them invest more than that. As I've already mentioned, we also set up a task force for women's football in FIFA. And last year, the FIFA convention voted on 10 principles that are essential for women's football. We are expecting from all our member associations that they respect these principles. Gender equality and development of football, those are two of the principles. And these are two ways to shape the future of women's football. This year, FIFA will also see in Zurich its first convention on women's football and leadership. We hope that this event will be an annual forum of positive change, and its conclusion will be included in what is done all over the world in order to inspire women's leadership in football. We also created positions in the executive committee of the FIFA. And we have implemented quotas. These quotas are important. We must perhaps think of creating other positions and creating other quotas in other decision-making bodies, because otherwise we will not be in step with the solidarity and equality provisions of the statutes of the FIFA. We hope that these quotas one day will not have a purpose any longer, because the reality will have changed, and we are asking our member associations to follow us in this path.
FIFA has worked really hard to make sure that women have the same opportunities in football. I can assure you that this work will continue. After Canada 2015, we'll have new objectives, stronger objectives. This work has to continue with your participation, your support. We know that lots of work has to be done, lots of investments have to be done to make sure that we can exploit the potential of all of women's football. Without your support, without the support of member associations, the progress will be very limited.
FIFA
can only guide the member association. Work has to be done on the ground at your level in each country, but each one of you. At the national level, with all the structures that are existing and that will exist. Between now and 2019, the next World Cup for women's soccer, we would like to share another success story with all of you. The number of players have to increase all over the world. Each young girl who wishes to play football has to be able to do it. The member associations have to put together proactive systems, infrastructures to succeed. FIFA hopes that the number of players will be, which is 30 million today, will end up being 45 million in 4 years. It's a very ambitious goal, but we have to succeed. Equality won't happen overnight, won't happen by itself. We have to work every day, and decision makers have to work hard. FIFA will increase opportunities to women in women's football, and we want to make sure that women's football is developed all over the world. Those are two very different things. First, we have to make sure that sports grow all over the world, but we also want to make sure that football be more attractive for women, for young girls, and we want to make sure that they are more implicated or engaged in this field. Our member associations have a duty. We have to work together to reach that goal. Change has to come from the root level, especially at the member association level. Women have to be better represented outside of the playing field. We have to work together. We have to promote equality and equality in sport. We have to work together to create better structures for women's football. We have to help. You have to help us to make sure that we have more trainers, more referees, more coaches, women's coaches and so on. We have to create bridges so that women can have a career on the field and off the field. We know that the challenge is huge, but the help that you've received so far, the support that you will give us will help us to succeed all over the world. We want to create new competitions, new structures, new facilities, new opportunities so that women will be better represented. We have to find new ways to promote and to create sponsorship for the sport. We want to make sure that revenues will be better shared. We hope that women's football will be self-sufficient one day and self-financed, so that every girl, every woman in the world can play, can be a referee, can be a trainer. At the FIFA, we will work and we will make sure that we would implement a few programs. In terms of governance, FIFA will review the structure of all the working groups, and women would be designated to lead working groups. FIFA will create new rules in its bylaws so that women play a larger role in football, and to make sure that we have a better governance and a better governance structure. FIFA will endeavor to make sure that women's football be part of every member association. Women's football has to be as important as men's football. We want to make sure that we create the appropriate structures to do so. In terms of competition and of technical aspects, we will work together to create a club or a World Cup of clubs, basically. We will work with every confederation. We will create a new program where a championship will be created for clubs all over the world to compete in a World Cup. And we want to make sure that the level, the play at the club level will be reinforced. We want to make sure that the players have equal opportunities. We want to make sure that trainers have equal opportunities. We want to make sure that referees have equal opportunities. We want to make sure that at least 1/3 of the officials on the team be women. We will create training programs, education programs. We want to make sure that the expertise and experience of women all over the world be recognized. We will create new opportunities for training for women. We will be working with different members associations. This way we will enable women to have a better access to training programs to improve their expertise and their experience. FIFA will also create promotional campaigns campaign to make sure that we change our cultures and our societies. We want to make sure that every young girl, every woman in the world be allowed to play football. In some countries it's not allowed yet. We want to make sure that visibility of the sport will be improved. We want to make sure that we support every woman, every young girl in every country. We want to make sure that we are visible on every platform, be it a social media support or TV support or any other support. We want to make sure that the marketing opportunities will be realized. We want to make sure that not only the national teams will be recognized, but every team at every level. We want to make sure that more countries are able to participate in the final qualifications. Thanks to Canada 2015, we now have a wonderful opportunity to support our sport even better than we've done in the past. We want to make sure that it remains sports number one in the world. We want to make sure that we exploit the potential of all women in the world. We want to grab this opportunity together. Don't forget a piece of advice that I gave you a few weeks ago. Every member association has to work really hard. I ask you all, support one woman in your association, in your country, be a mentor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lydia, and our gracious host, FIFA, for the staging of this symposium. Lydia, in her speech, of course, made set some very ambitious goals for the advancement of women's football. But as we said, you can't change the world without ambition, and we certainly are looking forward to the rolling out of a lot of the plans and the fruition of a lot of these programs. So we have reached the end of today's formalities. Yes, I know that you have enjoyed it, and some of you are a little bit sad about this, but don't be sad. Just take the encouragement from a lot of the discussions here to now go forth and implement the learnings in your respective member associations. As so many of you will be leaving us tomorrow, just a little bit in terms of the logistics. First of all, there is a survey that has been made available. Would like all of the women attending the symposium in an official capacity, including the delegates, the FIFA instructors, the FIFA committee members, FIFA ambassadors that currently work in football in a member association or in a confederation, or have done so in the last 4 years, to fill out a survey of your observations and your experiences here at the symposium. It's an anonymous survey, so please do feel free to be as honest, as blatant as possible. There's no individual names or countries that is attached to the data in the survey, and certainly no comments will be attributed to any particular individual. The survey is only available in English, so please make sure that you collect a survey on your way out at the back of this room at the end of the symposium, if you are willing to assist us in the survey. We will be measuring the responses rate, so please don't take it just to be polite, take it to be honest. Actually fill it all out. You can return the surveys when you collect your match tickets today, or if you can't complete it by then, please give it to any of the FIFA staff before you leave Vancouver at the offices here on the 3rd floor at the hotel. Thank you all so much. As you know, your input as leading women in football is very, very important to each and every single one of us. Now, many of you have been asking about the presentations at the symposium. They will be available to download on FIFA.com in about a week's time. So just about by the time you return to your respective federations, you'll be able to download and, of course, have a hard copy of all of the discussions here. Travel and transport logistics. We do recommend that you check in online. Usually it's available about 23 hours before flight departure. This will just help in aiding smooth handling at the airport as well. And of course, you can select your seats. Transfers to the airport from tomorrow. Those of you that have flight departures before 7 a.m., you will be receiving a message with your departure time, so you will be contacted directly. For flight departures between 7:30 3 and about 12 p.m. tomorrow, we will be having a shuttle that's running every 30 minutes. We do recommend that you leave your hotel about 2 hours and a half before your flight departure time. All of the shuttles will be leaving from the back entrance of this hotel. So from the lobby to access the back entrance, just use the escalator, and the shuttles will be serving Hotel Fairmont and Hyatt Regency individuals. In case of any emergencies or any further questions, don't hesitate to contact FIFA Travel and Transport, and there is a local Canadian number. Well, I'm sure that you all have access to that number. Now let's talk about this afternoon and the final. Your tickets will be distributed in the foyer. Now, they have been demarcated per confederation. All right, so it's fairly easy to, of course, get those particular tickets. Transportation to the BC Stadium will be starting from 1:30. So please try and leave as punctually as possible. Don't go to the stadium too late. We do know that there will be hundreds of thousands of individuals going into the stadium, or rather thousands of individuals going into the stadium. So if you want to beat the queues, make sure that you leave as soon as possible. Now, no food and beverages will be allowed into the stadium, but of course you can purchase once you get there. We've all got Category 1 tickets, so feel free to immerse yourselves fully in the spirit of the game. You can go there dressed casually. Enjoy this the experience today. And before you all leave and say goodbye, we need your approval on one more point. And you can display your agreement by clapping your hands. Has this, the 6th FIFA Women's Football Symposium, been a success? So it's a resounding yes. Thank you all so much. All the best of luck when you get to your federations. Bonne chance, chers amis, and see you in France 2019. Thank you.